Hi everyone, my name is Hal, and with all the new players in Path of Exile, I wanted to just do a very basic gearing guide for my beginner's Frostbolt character. This is not a build guide video, and it's just meant to show general budget gearing principles that can be applied to all characters. The Frostbolt guide will be linked in the description. Some things we're going to go over are gear prioritization, some resist caps, socketing, linking, and coloring, as well as jewels. So we're just going to take a look at our character gear sheet here, and as you can see up here, we're going to have a goal of about 10 chaos. Hopefully, we'll be able to hang out right around that budget. Um, so this project, we're starting out with what I believe is a reasonable amount for a new character that's just made it through all 10 acts. If you don't have 10 chaos, you likely have a combination of regret orbs, scours, ball orbs. You can potentially sell coins or some of the new currencies. You don't want to sell off your fusings and jewelers until you know that you have enough for linking your gear. But you can sell off different accumulated currencies, GCPs, chisels. You can sell off some of these different things to get the chaos that you need for trading, or you can just offer players alternative currency when you find a piece of gear you want. Some may accept, some may not. It just depends on what people are. Some people just say, nope, only chaos only, and you just got to deal with it. Additionally, we're going to start with 0 gear on this character. Um, we're going to start with 0, I think that you'll probably have 1 or 2 pieces of gear, hopefully, that you can keep wearing from your leveling process that you can just kind of deal with. So you want to first look over your gear, see what you think is already solid and what you can save some money on early, and then you don't need to replace and until later once you have a little bit more gold and or not gold but currency, and that way that you can just kind of save some money early on, and then once you start replacing with better gear, then you can just kind of filter those out. But that way that you can save some money in this initial gearing process. So next, you want to be aware of what colors and sockets you need and which ones you want. And what I mean by that is some things are I want to have and some things I must have. So first of all, our 5 socket, we're going to start with the 5 socket damage setup. And one thing, for example, is my Orb of Storms setup is Orb of Storms with Arcane Surge, Curse on Hit, and Temp Chains. So I want this in a 4 link for sure. The decoy totem, minion totem, elemental resist, a frost bomb, and an increased duration. This does not need to be linked. It's just a nice thing. I do want my fortify, faster attacks, and shield charge to be linked, but that's a pretty easy one. Um, and Herald of Ice and Thunder, these are just can be socketed in. They will need to, of course, because they are heralds and they reserve mana, they will need to be socketed separately, or as long as they are not attached to any support gems, because I don't want to reserve more than 50% of my mana, because I am mind over matter, and really any more than that, and you're kind of eating away at the effectiveness of that mind over matter. With again with the summon flame golem, cast from damage taken, mortal call, and increased duration. So we are going to want an armor base for this, and we're going to want an energy shield base for this. You can get, for example, 4 red sockets on a energy shield or evasion base. However, it is either rare or difficult, and it's not particularly budget friendly. So we are going to look at trying to get the correct bases just to save some money during this gearing process. So we're going to first just take a look at our sheet and see where do we want to start. You don't need to go into this priority order, but it's just what I like to do. And we're going to look at just to see what our budget looks like. So our 5 link chest, we're going to start with a budget of 2, and we'll see if we can get something. Our boots, again with 2, scepter 2, helm 1. We're going to go 1 alch on everything else until our shield, and we'll see if we can meet the 10C threshold there. So first of all, you want to start with your required or recommended uniques. Obviously, you don't want to run out of money before you have to buy something that your build actually requires. Now, this build requires absolutely no uniques whatsoever. However, we are going to use one, and you may not want to use it. It might not even be advisable. It doesn't have life on it, so if you would prefer to have the life and resist from your belt or something else, you can go ahead with that. But I like this belt. It has a high cold damage, it has nice resists, and it has cold damage leech. So that just adds into the leech that we get with our boots, or we're going to get with our boots. And then also, um, the main feature that I like on this is the chance to freeze while using a flask. Because this build is going to be just meant for mostly just clearing through maps, um, having that chance to freeze while having a flask should be up almost all the time. And it's just a really nice quality of life thing. Adds into the chance to freeze with our elemental proliferation. And that way, we'll be able to keep our freeze chance high, not being a crit based build. So looking at this to start with, um, I had already had this purchased because this is the one that I was using. It's a 29% cold damage, so it's a pretty decent roll. But we're just going to take a look and start off with this. I already have some of these searches preset, and I can link potentially some of these. I don't know how if these links will ever age out or potentially with the next league, but they should still work. So basically what you want to do is start off with, if you have some kind of required unique, you can just type it into the description. As you start typing, then you can just select, because that's what with PoE.trade, um, it'll allow for some of that with a lot of the uniques, unless they're very new. But at this point in the league, they should have everything. So what we're going to do down here is, if you take a look, and if we're going to put in cold damage, because this can actually roll with cold damage, and then it'll actually have the it'll have instead chance to shock with lightning, or it can have lightning damage and then lightning damage leech, and then the same for the corresponding fire. So we want the cold version, so we're going to put in increased cold damage. So increased cold. So you'll see here that you can get some different ones. So the implicit means the implicit on this belt is 30 strength. A crafted base, so that's something that you get from your masters. And obviously you don't want to use these two, because if you use this, it actually won't show up with anything. So I can just show crafted cold, excuse me, and it won't show up anything. So now if you do cold damage, 28. So we just went down one from what we have as a 29, which is just fine. And you can see that these are one chaos. So you'd want to look through and just check out the different rolls. So this one has 29 and pretty good resist, 34, so an average of 32 each. So 29, 32 strength, there's a good one. Probably want to go with that one. Or 32 and 34, 330 armor, and 29 cold damage. So that one's 21 minutes ago. I'd like to sometimes even just like with Go, um, you know, a possibly slightly higher roll. Just depends on what I'm doing exactly, and just especially if everything is the same. Some items in the game will just be all the same, and I would go with something like this where it's 21 minutes ago, much more likely to get a response. Something that you'll notice as we go through this is that a lot of people will not respond. They'll be offline even though we have our parameters set to online only. They might be AFK, DND, that means do not disturb. Sometimes it's just simply the way that this site works. It just is not caught up. Or sometimes people are just mapping and they're just not interested in stopping for a one C trade, one chaos orb trade. It just all depends. So sometimes you just have to kind of get used to messaging multiple people. So that's what we would do in this case. But since we already have this bot, we're just gonna go with this one to save time. So next we want to start with our 5 links chest. So let's take a look and see what we have. So we want Frostbolt, or at least this is what we're going with. Faster casting, cold penetration, controlled destruction because we are not a crit build, and hypothermia. So we have, and then as our 6 length, I was using some Ice Bite, but we're just going to go with the 5 link setup. So 3 blue, 2 green. All right. So what we want to look at is our 5 link search here. Search is a bit slow. Um, so what we're going to take a look at is I already have these previously set up just for convenience. But what we're going to look at here is we're going to take a look at body armors. So first you select body armor. You're going to want 5 links minimum. And that obviously that can show a maximum of 6, but no one's going to be selling a 6 link item for that cheap. But you don't necessarily want to go with and say specifically with blue and green in this case, because we're going to be able to actually color this chest. It might take as little as one chromatic orb to recolor this if we need it. So what we're going to do is make this easier and cheaper on us. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set the maximum armor at 1. So this will actually show up. So it'll show no armor bases and no armor evasion and no armor ES builds. The reason that we want to do that is just because it makes things easier. You're probably not going to have too much currency right away. And so you just want to set this at 1, so you just exclude those. That way when you're having to recolor things, that way you don't have to worry about getting those red sockets when you're trying to recolor it. So we're just going to make it a lot easier. It does limit it, so if you want to leave these open, you can do that, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to do shield 1, and we're going to leave evasion blank. So this is going to allow us to show evasion, or excuse me, energy shield bases, as well as energy shield evasion hybrid bases. Then we're going to come down here, and then we're going to pick our modifications here. So you can do a general life max. So you can do a maximum life. But what this will do is actually it'll go, so then it'll need a base roll of 80 life. If you do instead and go with a maximum life, total max life, this will actually allow for a little bit wider search so that it'll combine the strength roll. A strength roll of say 40 would give you half as much life from that strength. So you'd get 20 life from that strength, and then if you had another 60 life on the armor, then you're going to get a total of 80. So it's just up to you what you want. And then we're going to go with, we're going to try and just see, how much things cost. And we're going to start with resist. And so what you want to do is type in, start with sudo, or you can just go resist, and you can usually see it as the bottom one here. So sudo percentage total elemental resist. So what this will do is allow you to show, rather than typing in cold and lightning, fire, all these different ones, instead you can just do this, and you can just type in say 50. And then we're going to be able to show, so you could have an item that has all 3 resists that combine up to 50 or greater. And that way, it's easier to show a wider range. We'll do a narrower search later as we figure out exactly what we need. But because we have no gear on right now except for the belt, we do have fire and lightning, and we do have some from our tree. So I can just show you that real quick. But we have some over here. We have a little bit up here, and we have some cold resist here, and a little bit of all res over here. So we do have a little bit to start with, and so meeting our caps will be a little bit easier with this tree, but it's not nothing special. So what we're going to do is look at that total and pseudo resists. And so we're going to see what this comes up with. So first you want to look and make sure that you're not getting a corrupted armor unless it has the exact colors that you need, because a corrupted armor, or corrupted anything really, cannot be changed in any way. So you can't craft on it, you can't use a chaos, you can't change it, you can't scour it, and you can't recolor any of these bases. So that is the downside and why this one is probably so cheap, because it's just not something that somebody is necessarily looking for, perhaps. So this is one that we can see right here for three chaos, which would be that'd be one over our budget. We could go with a 150 base with 111 life and 58 resist, and additionally has 52 mana. So that's something that for this build you want to take into consideration because it has the Mind over Matter keystone. We want a high mana base. So that's something to consider for 3 chaos. You can also look a little bit further down. So these are going to be pretty easy to recolor. Right here, 54 and 85 also has some life regen. But it looks like that those are going to be starting to be going up in price. So you can just take that off and start with something lower. So you can look and see, and you've already got 2 alchemy. So we are only a couple weeks into the league, and we've got 2 alchemy. And I should note that this is about 2 weeks into the Harbinger League in August. So we're already looking at 2 alchemy orbs for some of these different 5 links. A lot of these are going to be corrupted, but so for example, here is a pretty decent ES base at 200. We also have some fire resist on there and some max life. So what I want to show is how you can look at what we have on this already and what we're able to actually craft on it with our masters. So with our masters, so then where you're lacking in resist, or perhaps you're maybe needing some dexterity or something like that, you can actually add on some different things if you are missing it on there. But all armor is limited to 3 suffixes and 3 prefixes. So when we look at this one here, we can see it has 95 life. So a site that I like is typically poecraft.com. There are a couple other ones. There's Path of Exile mods and PoE affix. I believe that this one has the most up-to-date um, modifications updated on it already. So we have, so we're going to start with an ES-based chest. We look at maximum life. We just toss something on there. You can see energy shield. So the maximum energy is shield here, and another maximum energy shield. So one thing to note here is that it can be difficult sometimes to tell if there's a hybrid role. So this might actually already have a maximum life along with a life in ES. So it's possible that this is actually a life roll and a life and ES roll. So this could potentially already have ES, life in ES, and life. So that would be 3. And then, so then that would still, but that would be okay for us. So then we're looking here at 1 suffix of fire res. So at the worst case scenario here, we're looking at a 200 ES base, and we're not looking at ES too heavily here. We're looking at life, but we want a high life, and we're going to try and get some resist on this chest. But it's going to have an open mod so that we can actually add on either cold or lightning resist, or we could add on something else. But we'll probably end up going with some kind of resist on this chest. So right here you can see that some of these are not showing up, and it's because of a lot of the new different modifications that Path of Exile has added with some of the different hybrid roles. But so this is a pretty nice one for 1 chaos, and to actually come in a little bit under budget. Not seeing too much, and I did look through some of these a little bit earlier. So one thing to keep in mind is that we're going to look at our current dex as at 94, And right now what we need for our skills is 105. However, I will note that you want to keep in mind that at level 20, these would be 111 dexterity required, or I believe it's 111. So that's something to keep in mind, and so that's something to shoot for. So we would like to see some dex on at least one piece of gear. So that's always something nice to consider, and as well as just having that a little buffer in case some of your gear needs some more extra dexterity or something like that. So a lot of these, I think, considering the way that I like to do some gearing is when I look at a piece of gear that I found at 95 and 25, I can go ahead and bump this up 95, and we'll go with our resist again, and we'll set that at 25. So if we've already found our minimum threshold here, then we can look at ones that are potentially even better. All these are corrupted. This one has pretty similar. We're looking at here at 28 and 99, but this now we're starting to get into 2 and 3 range. This one has 111 for 3. So let's see if we can just get this guy to respond to us. So to do that, you simply click on copy to pasteboard, and sometimes, or copy to clipboard. And also when you're just scrolling through, I sometimes like to just click on ones. However, if you do click on more than one, it won't get rid of this one, but it's still nice in case you are just scrolling through different ones. That way you can click on and just find kind of ones that you're looking for. There's no real favorite or anything like that. So you want to give somebody a little bit of time to respond, but if they are not going to, then you just kind of got to move on, and we'll check on something else. So let's see if we can get this one. Alright, so we got our 2C sail. Typically they invite you to the party if you haven't done much trading already. I think it's common courtesy to simply wait until they have offered the trade to you. Pleasing social trade interaction there. Alright, so we've got our 5-link chest. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can't color this. And if you're starting and you don't have a lot of armor scraps, you know, you can skip that if you want. I would typically probably I would quality this up. One thing to note is if you're ever trying to link something, you always want to have the full quality on it because I believe it has a 15% higher chance of getting the links, higher level links. And looks like so we had a late response on this guy. So let's just respond to that guy. We already got one. And so what we're going to keep on doing is, so we only got one. So we got our 2 off. So pretty painless there. So we're just going to need, we're still going to need our dex for that. Let's look at our armorer's workbench and see what we can throw on here, if anything. It's possible we have a hybrid. Nope. So we can throw on fire, cold, or lightning. So what I'd like to do in this case is just to wait. Wait until you've kind of got some idea about what you're looking at, and then we can throw on some resist afterward. And then, you know, if we are struggling for something later, that way we don't. That way, just we don't want to limit ourselves in what we're buying. So next on our list is our boots. So the deal with this character is that it really benefits well off of the boot enchant that says you have a percentage of your life and mana regen or leech uh, if you've killed an enemy recently. So we're going to look at our boots with leech search. So I'll show you the search form. So we got our boots here. What we want to try and get on this is just some bare minimum. There are a couple of different characters in Path of Exile that you can withgo the move speed because you'll have abilities that you can just leap around and you won't need to worry about move speed. But because we are going to be uh, uh, using our shield charge, which benefits off our move speed, we want at least 20% here. I'm setting this at 50 for now, and then what you can do is, if you know what the enchant looks like, there are almost 400 different enchants, and so you're going to need typically to know what you're looking for. So you can just type in something like leech, and that's going to come up. So percentage of damage leached as life or mana if you killed recently. So this is actually going to roll with zero point 0.4, zero point 0.5, or zero point 0.6. We're just going to leave that blank because as a budget character, we just want that enchant on our boots. So as you can see, we at least have a number of budget options available, and we'll see if we can get anybody. So it looks like all of these are going to be the lowest tier, but that's okay. We're going to take a look at some of these and see. This one already is linked. Normally I wouldn't be too worried about that, but on a budget character, um, being able to save a couple of jewelers and a couple of links, a couple of fusing orbs, that never hurts. So this has a little bit of extra strength, so that actually boosts, as you'll see, the life. Total life is actually, somebody crafted on this one already at 53, but it's actually a little bit higher because you get half the amount of strength. With the dexterity on this one, fire, life, and move speed, I'm thinking that this one is probably going to be the go-to. But this one has 77 life, some resist, life regen. It is already 4 linked. And one nice thing about this point in the league is that a lot of people may have already been wearing these. We did come about 2C, and we can just put that in here on our chest. So we could go one over on some of these, but let's see if we can't go with our normal budget and see what we can find. So let's take a look here, and I kind of like the kind of like fire or cold, but if we get lightning, that's not too bad either. So we could try this one and see with the dexterity, that would solve our dexterity issue, and see what we have for them. So let's see if this person is willing to sell. So 5 alchemy, one way that you can see about how much we're spending here. Great site is poe.ninja. So we are playing on the Harbinger League. And this, if you want to play in hardcore, I don't recommend it as a beginner, but some of the pricing might be a little bit different because there are less people playing in hardcore and because items filter out as people die. But typically, all of this would apply. So let's look at an alchemy right now. So actually, this guy was selling, so 1 chaos we can buy 3.7 alchemies on average. So right now this guy is selling for maybe 1.3 chaos for those boots. Looks like we don't have a response there, so let's see if we can get these ones. And like I said earlier, you are saving, if you're saving fusings, if you look here and see that the orb of fusing is about 2 to 1, right, or 1 to 2. So you're saving about a half a chaos by already having that linked. So we got, just make sure which guy we're actually buying from. Except there, we've got 2 chaos, and you can either just press S and go to visit hideout. Oops. Thank this person. And looks like this guy, he invited me to a group after the fact there, so it was just a little bit late. So it looks like we already have our boots set up. So we can either go with our decoy totem in this setup, or since it's an armor evasion base, what we're going to probably do is see if we can't just get our 4 reds. So with an armor and evasion base, you're looking at probably more likely to get some greens and some reds, but it doesn't take too long typically to get 4 of one or the other. So we've got our setup there, and now we have our dex requirement, or oh, that was the other one. Sorry. Um, so we're looking at this one already has 6 mods, so we can't craft on this one, I believe. Oh, looks like we have a hybrid roll on this one. So the reason that it shows up as 6, but it looks like it actually has a hybrid roll on there, so it actually only has 5 mods. So we can actually fit 1 more in there. We could add in strength if we didn't need it. We can add fire or cold still. All right, so we're probably gonna want to wait on that again because we might want to do cold. And I do have a little bit higher master, so we won't use the higher cold res. We're just going to go with 21 to 25 if we end up crafting on these. Same with here, 20 to 25, just because you might not have a high enough master at the moment, so we just want to show a more realistic idea there. Alright, so what's next? So then we're going to just move on to our next piece. So what I want to do with this character is there are a number of different ways that you can go, but we are going with a scepter and a shield. You can also go with a dagger, and especially if you go crit, you'll want a dagger because it has more high crit chance. And then if you want, you can actually go for a staff. And cheap staffs, you can actually either farm up the divination cards for a 5-link staff, or you can just buy one, and then you can use some different essences and different things to get a +2 staff. But what we're going to do is going to go with a scepter because it has nice mods for casters, as well as it can roll an attack speed modifier. And we're going to want the attack speed because it will scale our attack speed for the shield charge, and shield charge is generally just going to be used to get around, and then as well it's going to be used to apply our fortify buff. So I have this search form already set up. So what I have set is 12% attack speed. You can set it a little higher, a little lower if you want. I have adds elemental damage to spells. I didn't put cold, though I think that would typically be the preference there. I just put it in as 10 just to add something. So these with the and modifier will be required, and then you can set in additional filter groups, or I could set these with something different. Like, so I could go another spell damage, and then I could also go cold damage. And that is not likely to show up very much. fairly rare. Looks like we do have a handful of them. So we have attack speed, some cold damage to spells, spell and cold, an elemental base. Here we have penetration, which is always nice, 6%, and then also has 36 spell, 12 cold, fire damage to spells, but 25% attack speed is pretty nice. Again here we have, looks like 57 combined, cold, attack. This one looks fantastic. Elemental and spell is 72, 82, and attack speed, and this guy's crafted a low craft on there, but this one's already at 4. So it looks like I think that this one is probably a little underpriced. Also has a little bit of mana on there, and some crit chance if you wanted to go crit, and it doesn't hurt for our build. So let's see. So here you see that this character is not online, even though it says he's online, or it did say he was online. We do have online only on our search, but it looks like may not have, because I had this previously set, it's possible that it didn't show up that way. Alright, so let's hide our search form there and look at, see what we have here. So we have 50, 65, added cold, added attack speed, and we could potentially throw something on here. Probably nothing too desirable from our master, but it doesn't hurt. Let's see, was this the person that we... This has fire damage, but has cold, high spell, some cold, fire damage to attacks, and 25% attack speed is really nice. Let's see if we can't go with that one. And again, you can use PoE mods to see what kind of mods these you can roll. So we got 1 chaos for that. That's a pretty good deal. Pretty good starting weapon. And you'll notice that if you're in the chat window here, you can right click and you can visit their hideout through that as well. Thank you. I believe that we paid 2C for our boots. We are 1C under budget there. Alright, so let's look and see. So now we wanted to go with 1C for our helm. One thing I do want to show with our helm is just quickly show enchants as something that you might be interested in later on. So this is not a budget strategy, but it is certainly an option if you can get it to work. So for example, what I've done with this search is just set any of the 3. So these are the 3 enchants related to our Frostbolt. Cast speed, damage, probably damage is going to be preferred, but cast speed is nice. And then chance to freeze, this is going to be irrelevant for crit casters, but it's going to be, this would be nice for us. So I just put it in there. And if you could get this for cheap, then why not? And then what, instead of and, which is the default, you go to count, set it as 1, and then search. Currently this is not such a great, not a great helm, but it does have, because it doesn't have any life on there, but it does have some elemental resist. You could potentially go for that, but it's not the most ideal enchant anyway. This one has some all res and chaos resist, but again it doesn't have any life on the Joffrey's crest, and a chance to freeze. A couple of Huber circles. This one is 3 chaos, but it's a lower base, so you can see the item level here is not going to have as high a rolls. This one has the highest potential rolls there, and 15% freeze chance. but it's 5C, so we're not going to be looking at that. And again, you're going to get into some very high cost items here. So for example, this is a pretty solid item. It has some resist, has a solid life roll, has some strength, and it has frostbolt damage, all for 7 chaos. So these are some things that you just might want to look at as you get some. So what we're going to do is then just go to my previous search. So we have our helmet, and then we're going to set it to max life of 80 and resist of 50. And let's see what we got with this. So we have lightning, and so we're hurting on the cold right now. So it does say 60, but again, we're going to be looking to hit our resist caps. So if I haven't spoken about that before, we are going to just talk about quickly on how to get to um, our resist caps is 75% on each of the fire, cold, and lightning. Now, chaos resist is kind of an added bonus. It is nice if you have a chaos heavy encounter, if you're going to be taking a lot of chaos damage, but it's not something that you're going to want to prioritize, especially early. And so what you're going to want to do is make sure that you have these at 75 when you're starting maps. So at 75, then you can run just general normal maps, and then you, as you progress, and in my opinion, I think that if you can do something up like a budget gearing like this, then you should try and shoot for the resist caps of elemental weakness. So in an elemental weakness map that afflicts you with the curse elemental weakness, your resist will be reduced by 30 in yellow or mid-tier maps, and by 34% for red or high-tier maps. So to negate that, then of course we just add those together, and we want 109 for all resists if possible. So you can do some different things like bismuth flask, or if you have something else like endurance charges or something like that. But here we don't rely on any of that, so we're gonna try and see if we can get LE weakness capped. So if you look at some of these helms that we've got, we've already looking at. Let's just scroll down and see once we get into the 1Cs. So we have almost an entire page under 1C. So let's see if we can't just up this just slightly to 90, 60, and see where we're at. Still one for only one alchemy. 94 and looks like 60. 93 and 80 there for 2 alchemy. And that's about 1/2 or 2/3 of a chaos, so pretty good. 94. And again, now we're getting into the 1C, which was about our budget. So let's see what we can find up here with the... Let's see if we can get this guy to respond. So the accuracy is not helpful. The energy shield, not really helpful. But we are more worried about just the life and the resists. If you can get some other things like strength or anything on there, that doesn't hurt either. But those are mainly what we're looking at. We could potentially go with this with a little bit of extra life regen and mana. This one does have a high cold resist, is what we're looking for. So let's see if we can get this one for 1C. Alright, people are cooperative today. One thing that you'll note is sometimes people will be in a party, and so it was dances with totems that I was actually looking for. But if you saw down here, it was actually Greysong that invited me to the party. But just make sure that you're looking at who that, and then actually go to this guy's. This is the guy who we actually whispered for the item. All right. If you didn't see, he was just asking me if that was the correct one. So now we've got 97 life, fire, and some cold, so we're working on our cold resist there. Let's see if we have any mods on this one. We do have the ability for some energy shield. Obviously these are percentage increases of armor, so if you put this on here, it would do nothing. So what you would want to do, if you wanted to go with the energy shield bonus here, then you'd go with this highest one, or the highest one that you can. Let's see if we have any other ones. Armor. You could add some flats. So right here we have 67. So this actually might be better percentage-wise. You'd have to do the math, but it costs 2 chaos, so it's not really worth it. And looks like some reflect. That's not really worth anything. So we'd probably eventually put something on there if we wanted to spend probably some transmutes. Not a big deal for that one. So now we're just moving on down the line. So we got our helm for, looks like we had 1C there. So let's move on to gloves. And let's tune this down a little bit for gloves. See what we have available. I believe that the life rolls will be a little bit higher on the helms. So now let's take a look and see what our gear is looking like. So we have our setup there. We can get our 4 link setup, so we can get either one of these in here. So let's just take a look and see what we can get on this. So it only took us 1 jeweler to get that. Sometimes you can be lucky like that. Sometimes you can take a handful. It's not going to take too many. And then orb of fusing, and we were lucky again. So we got that for just 1 fusing and 1 jeweler, and we got that linked up. So then we're looking for blue, 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 and green. Got our setup there. And now we are going to still need some dexterity. So we can put dexterity, I believe, on this. So we can go dexterity or cold. And dexterity or cold or fire. So, and this one I believe can get fire as well. So we have some options there, so I'm not too worried about this requirement there. Here, we are probably going to wait on this and just see what we have for a shield. And I'm doing these in a specific order, but we'll get into the jewelry in just a moment. So what we have for our gloves, so what you can do here is, looks like we have, we're getting our resist pretty well covered, but just to make things easier, let's see if we can't go with fire and cold. Fire, cold, and life regen here. So let's see if we can do this one. Or here. So it has a little bit higher rolls, but looks like it has. So you can see here this one rolled with a pseudo life and ES, and then he added the life to it. Here we have a 75 roll, 87, high resist, some mana on kill, not too bad, and 66 mana. So this one might be worth grabbing. In fact, I think that we will try this one, see if we can get this person to respond, and then we'll just fill in our lack of fire with something else if we can. One other thing to note is there are some different types of bases for gloves. So you can go with a ES gloves, and you can actually get a doesn't look like they potentially have that the prefix on there, but PoE gloves. And we can see that if we go to our ES gloves, you can actually have some unique modifiers here. With the fingerless gloves, actually have added spell damage to them. They're a high level. Grip gloves have projectile. Spike gloves have melee damage. And none of the hybrid rolls, so only the pure rolls have that. So you actually could look for something like spell damage on your gloves as well. No response on that one. We do want either armor or ES, something along those lines. Fire and cold on this one. Heap of armor. It says 39 strength, but lower life roll a little bit. Let's see if we can't tune this down or tune this up a little bit to 85 and see if we can filter some things out. So 6.4, 87, cold and fire. Let's see what we can, if this person is around. AFK. You can see some of the problems that you might run into with that. Strength there. 77 fire and cold for 3. Looks like we're getting in a little bit higher than our budget. So let's tune these down. Try and save some. Oh, we got summon 1 chaos for bloodgrass satin gloves. Thank you, thank you. Alright, and so now we have our second to last setup. So we are going to try and link these as well. So that took 17 jewelers. So that's pretty sort of unlucky, I would say. So that's and you can trade jewelers up to fusings for 4. So that about 17 jewelers, probably about 2C. I didn't factor these into the 10C budget, but I did consider these in terms of what we were trying to go for. So 17, pretty unlucky. Now here we could leave these off if we are unlucky, but 3 fusings, we're just going to go with that and try it out. And like I said, you know, if you are light on that, so then you'd want to start with things that you absolutely have to link, these, and then leave these for last because you might be running low. Struggling to get what we want on there, so we'll just leave off our increased duration as just a quality of life type of deal. Alright, so we got our gloves. We are moving on. Let's move on to... We were a little bit over budget, so we went with 1 chaos with the gloves instead of 1 alch. So let's try and get some rings, and What we're gonna do with rings is probably just go with one of our. So what I'm gonna show on both of these is first our rings. We have rings with damage mods. So what you can see is what I consider damage mods are cast speed, cold damage, and spell damage. I don't actually even know if spell damage rolls on rings, but it does roll on our amulets, so I just popped it in there. So I left these one with 60, 50 there, and then just going again with our put these in, put in a count, and then 1, and then we want to search that. So one thing this is one of the reasons that I left these for last. I left the jewelry for last because they do have damage mods. So what you want to do is make sure that you have your gear set, and then with whatever leftover cash you have, then you kind of want to look for, well, what can I do for damage? What can I do for upping my cast speed? What can I do for things like that? So if you're looking at rings, they typically have very high resist rolls, but they also are places where you can get things like cast speed, cold damage, especially high rolls like cold damage. You can get any of the elementals, cold, chaos, fizz damage. You can get all these different rolls. You can get very high rolls, but typically higher than average with the essence crafting. But here, so for something like mana regen, cast speed, life, cold, we can get all these things for about 1 chaos each. So this one that we saw up here looks pretty solid with cold damage, fire and cold, all res, max mana for our reminder of matter, and some life and life regen. So let's see if we can get this person to message us back. If we can do that, then we'll probably just skimp on our last couple pieces and go with a alchemy orb on those. So it looks like we're currently over our base cap on our lightning. We need a lot of fire. So let's see if we can find something with fire resist instead. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch back to our search with no damage mods. No damage mods here. We're going to go to our search form, and we can keep our pseudo resist. That's fine, but then we're going to add in fire resist. And we're going to start with 25. See how we do. So this has a fair amount of life because of the life and the strength roll. It's got some rarity as well. Um, if you are just getting into Path of Exile, rarity is always nice to have, but it's not something that's super coveted unless you are um, really looking to run a rarity and item quantity type of character. So that's not something that we're worried about, but certainly we will take all the extra rarity that we can get just as an added bonus. So we got fire here. So it looks like we have 41 fire on this one, 71 life, and an extra 5 from there. A couple of suffixes that don't pertain to us. Huge fire res, some life, strength. Looks like we got another one here. Pretty nice regen roll. Life, mana regen there. Mana regen will be nice on this character, especially as it's not a perfect boss character. So how about this one here? Fire, lightning, mana, life, and that actually will cure our dexterity problems if we can get this guy to message us back. Nope, AFK. So this is one of the problems, like I said, with the system is that it just doesn't pick up people that are AFK. This one wouldn't be too bad. All res, mana, life regen, life. Really bad evasion rating, so we wouldn't be able to craft on this. Does have some attack speed for our shield charge. This one has 33 dex, fire, some extra ES, just adds into an effective health pool. Let's try this one and see if we can't clear up that dexterity problem. I believe that we already messaged this guy. We were looking for cold damage. This one has fire, cold, lightning, mana regen, and life. So we're going to go ahead and try and get this one. We are going to need 2 rings anyway, so... Alright, let's see who we have. So you can see that that was the Sunder 2 broken. Looks like I was messaging all of these last few for 1 chaos, so... he was selling us this one here, cold, lightning, fire, life, and the nice regen. Alright, so now let's take a look and see where we're at. You don't want to check your... don't always want to look at lightning resist here. So we are overcapped on lightning resist, so we can stop looking for that and just look and focus on our fire and cold. So we're going to go ahead and do that with our next ring. We're going to leave our shield to last, even though you can get a lot of resists on the shield. We are going to leave that to last because they do have a fair amount of damage modifiers on shields. So that's another one of the reasons to leave that. You can go with the shield first if you want to just clear up resistances, especially if you have a lot of required uniques. That is one way to help, is by going with some kind of a high resist shield. We will probably hope to find one with a little bit of damage on it. So we're going to look and see if we can't find something with fire and cold. And again, we can get fire and cold on both of these, so that's something to keep in mind. So let's tune these down, see if we can't keep us closer to the budget. Right now we are at 1C there, so we have spent 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So looks like we can probably come close into the budget, very close, with 1 alch for an amulet and 1 alch for a ring. So let's, and you can also go like this and go ahead and set your max currencies so you don't have such a long list, and go Orb of Alchemy. So a couple of things that are not really helpful. Terrible energy roll there, but pretty decent resists all around and 67 life. One thing to note, just this is a corrupted ring, but properties are doubled in breaches, but you're not going to encounter too many of those anymore. Eventually, maybe later in the league, but right now they are about a 1 in 10 chance to spawn in maps, so it's not a huge consideration, at least at this point. Right now, let's see if we can find just one of these. This guy was an hour ago. Let's just grab this one if we can. It's 20 of each, but it also has a solid lightning roll. We don't need the lightning, but it does have some more life there. And what I did here on accident actually was I hit the sort button, so I can actually sort this to the top with the highest max life of all the rolls that showed up. Or I can do the same thing with something like lightning res, so it's the only one. But now I'm sorting the max life to the top here out of what I have. So let's just go ahead and try this one. See if they are available. We'll get our amulet going. Looks like he sold that. Alright, so That's just one of the things, is that sometimes they will have already sold there. Mana gain on kill, not too bad. ES, life, resist. Um, let's go with a little bit higher resist, I think, on this one. AFK, striking out. Third time's a charm. We'll see if this guy will get back to us, and we'll start looking at this. So, what do we have for amulets? Again, we have life, just some resist. Can take a look at what we have. So we're probably going to be looking at hopefully getting capped off with either our shield, our probably one of these two different crafts, and then probably our amulet here. So let's take a look and see if we can't just go with a fire resist. So 2 jewelers, very cheap. Life, fire, cold, mana regen, lightning damage, spell damage. Let's see if we can't, let's just take a look at some of the things that we can get. So we can actually toss in a spell damage modifier. Total increased cold spell damage, and we'll just set that at 10. So what that total cold spell damage will show is then it'll show both spell damage, which will count the same, and it'll also show in cold damage right there. So right now we're looking at 1C for these, so because we're trying to stay under that budget, let's just cut those out. Looks like we still need to grab that ring. Let's tune these down to 15. Keep our life high if we can. Fire, cold, mana, strength, life. That one looks pretty good. Alright, let's give this guy a shot. We did not message him yet. He's looking at 1 chisel, which is about the same as 1 alchemy. Alright. We'll visit him up. Thank you. Head back. And toss this in. We're going to go 1 chisel. So that's about the same. So let's color this one red. Look at this one. We actually are under budget on this one. Green. Everything else looks about the same there. So let's look at the amulet. We do have a little bit of room to breathe. So we have what, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. Probably if we grab 1 more amulet and the shield for 1C, and then we will be right about around 10. So let's see what we can get here. Mana, strength, life, all attributes. Clear some stuff up with the fire resist there. That one's pretty nice. Some mana regen, ton of strength, some life, ton of fire and mana, and solid. Solid strength and dexterities there. And let's see if we can get that one for an elk. So this guy just has an auto reply saying that he is in doing labyrinth runs. Unfortunately, at the moment, you're unable to um, trade from the labyrinth. Um, let's see which guy we messaged. That guy. So this one was okay too, I think. So you can see that we copied this one, and we also copied this one. So I can just go back to it. Try this one. That one's offline. $78 life, some mana, some fire. Has lightning, nothing helpful there, but a high life roll, some fire, some mana regen, and some mana. Why not? Let's give this one a shot. And obviously, you can be as discerning and picky as you want. Again, strength and dexterity, life and fire. Just a small amount of spell damage on that one. Got spell damage and cast speed for 2. Let's go with this one and see if we can't get this guy to respawn. Certainly be nice. Another cast speed, rarity, life and fire. Go ahead and try that one. You'll notice this has a corrupted mod. So it was a Jade Amulet, which would be dexterity, but since it's corrupted, it got a corrupted mod of -6 fizz damage. Not a very good one. Strength and dexterity, life, fire, mana. If we're going to go for 1C, then let's see if we can't find one with some kind of a damage mod on it. Oh, looks like we got somebody here. Alright, 2 alchemy. Alright, so we're going to have just our shield left. So we need to cure our dexterity issue. Got a couple of damage mods on that. That was quite nice. Alright, so now we are looking at our last piece, and we're going to probably try and stick with the budget here. And so we got 2 elks. So 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 9. And for 1C, we have a budget left of 1C for our shield. So let's see what we can find. So I don't know if looks like we didn't do one for shield, so we'll just go ahead and go any shield will do. What we want is a high life roll, so we're going to try and get at least 80. I'm going to take a look at our resists. So we are just about to the cap. So we got the cap on fire resist for LE weak. We got the lightning resist, LE weakness capped, and we got cold. And we can either cap our cold through our enchants, which is what we will probably want to do. That way we can just leave everything open. So So we can get cold and dex, and we will be capped on that, so we don't have to worry about that if we don't get cold on this shield. So what we're going to do is going to get rid of that there, and we're going to go with as much life as possible. We'll start at 90, and maybe we'll work our way down. We'll go to spell damage, total increased spell damage. I'm going to start with 50 and see what comes up. Alright, so this one has about 68 for 1 and 91. Mana regen, all looks great. So let's see. This one also has our cold. Mana, about 60, 101 life, no regen, less mana. Same here, about 50 rather than 60, 115 life. An extra 5% chance to block, that's nice. Already linked up for us. 115, looks like 50 cold. Let's see. Here we got 58, 107. Another 6% chance. Looks like another 50. Only 79. 94. 69% cold damage. Another high cold damage. Spell damage. High life. Alright, well, let's take see if we can just grab this first one and see. Alright, high life and mana, cold spell, mana regen. Let's see if they are available. Alright. Elrion is losing his books. Alright, so we got everything set. Now we are still looking for cold, and we still need our dexterity. So let's go ahead and grab, let's keep this one to be as marketable as possible for resale value, and just have a little bit of extra cold res. So we would normally go with this, but we're going to go with this one here, and we're just going to craft on 20 to 25. Toss these in, and we're going to grab 20 to 25 dexterity. Actually, let's take a look and see if we could go with more. Item mods, and you can see what the crafters would be at the different levels. So we have evasion and armor, crafting a suffix. So Haku level 2 is 20 to 25, and Haku level 3 is 26 to 30 right there. So I think you're probably going to have the Haku 3, so we can go ahead and do that one and go 26 to 30 dexterity. So now we are set for that. Go with those. And we're just going to want to link these up. It'll probably be easier to craft the red-green onto our scepter here. So we are going to go ahead and link that. Looks like we are going to run out of that. So we are going to need to get some more chromes to get that faster attacks once you want to get that in there. And then same with our Herald of Ice and our Herald of Thunder. But all we need is some more chromes. We're not going to go through the buying of that, I don't think, on there. It's not really worth it online because currency trading can be kind of a bear. Just grabbing, just trying to find somebody. It's quite easy. It's just difficult sometimes to find people. So I like to go with our jewels last. So I don't like to put jewels into our gearing section. So hopefully when you pick up jewels, my rule of thumb for jewels is if it costs 2 to pick up, it'll be worth it if you can get a 3-stat jewel. Same here. Now here, this would only cost 1 typically if you weren't going with a what we have here. But with ours, we have our frozen trail, so we need our socket there and then our socket there. Now, if you are going out of your way a little bit, like this, it costs 2, and this one here costs 2. So, in order to get that, I'm only going to go, I'm only going to do that if I have the jewels already, or if I have the money to buy them, and that's why I wouldn't necessarily suggest that or put that into our budget. But this is something that you'd be looking for. So, life, and then 2 other helpful mods. Same life, 2 other helpful mods. So I have some preset. So here we have I just named it as a wide cold jewel search. So I have it set at 5C, and then I can set the uh, very wide parameters with anything that is going to be pertaining to cold. So a little bit of a slow search. If you will see, looks like we can go back to PoE Craft, Jewels, and you can see all the different mods. So this is why Jewel mods can be very complicated because there's so many different ones and so many different finicky ones that are just slightly different. So something more general like Global Crit Strike Multiplier is going to be a little bit lower rolls but better for more people. And then crit chance for spells versus crit chance for elemental spells versus just a general crit chance is going to be just a little bit lower typically. Um, Not sure why that one is not working. Alright, so I'm not sure why that earlier search didn't work, but and I can link this as I've already done the work on it. But so basically I have a cold search. So basically that's just the way I set it. So basically just general in things that are looking for cold. I do this typically if I'm just looking for things that are going to be easy to buy and resell, or if they're going to be good for a next build of mine or something like that. So I set it with lots and lots of wide different things, and then I can set an alert for that. If I'm looking for something very specific, so let's say that I have let's say that I'm looking at my passive tree here, and I just have 1 here to pick up. It's only 1. I can easily get something here for a C, like our 1 chaos or maybe 2C. It's worth it to just grab that then. If you're having to go out of your way, then I wouldn't do it until you have the money. But let's say that I do, and I just want to set this to 1 chaos. I can get rid of some of the stuff. So let's say I didn't really want chance to freeze in there. I can set this to count 1, get rid of freeze, totem, I can keep in some of these cold, but I'm not doing crit on this build, so let's get rid of that crit. Mana regen, we can go without cold damage, trap and mine. So we're going to get rid of damage over time, area, because we don't do area damage. Get rid of our attack speed, attack and cast speed we can leave in. Global crit, 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 crit. And we can leave in our elemental resists and attack speed. We'll get rid of that for now too. And then we will just search these. We come up with one of those plus our life. And now we've got... oh, oh, it was the attack and cast speed. Okay. So we had attack and cast speed and life. And a little bit of strength and dexterity. Um, you know, life, cold, lightning. So you're picking up a life, cold and lightning. Now this is traps, so we don't do traps. So you could probably get something a little better. But if you can get something that is 3 stat, great. But otherwise, you can grab something life, attack, and cast speed. That's all good. You could grab this for like 1C. Or life and projectile damage might be nice. And this will be actually should be resellable. It only came up an hour ago. Well, actually, it's totem life, not totem damage. So projectile damage, max life, totem life. And it doesn't really do much for us, but hey, why not keep our decoy totem uh, a little bit heftier. So you could grab this for 1C, slot that in. But the reason that I like to do that last is because I don't like to rely on these in the event that I get, if I get some fire and cold resist on these, I don't, unless my build is really unique heavy, I don't want to rely on something that I might replace later. If I have like a, 1 or 2 chaos jewel that I'm going to put in later that I'm going to replace, I don't want to rely on that for my gearing and have to break up some different things. So yeah, that's our gearing. So we did pretty well. We can throw on some master crafting on a couple of these um, if we need to, but just for 10 chaos, we did get a shield for 1C. So that's 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 1 chisel and 2 elk. So that's right about 10 chaos, so I think we did pretty well with our 10C budget. We got Ellie weakness caps, so we can do Ellie weakness caps maps right from the start. We got our 5 link, so for a solid damage setup. Um, and then, yeah, you're pretty much set to go. We did spend a handful of fusings and jewelers and a number of different chromatics. So that is something to be worried about. Just make sure that you are coloring and fusing the things that you need absolutely first, and then move on from there. Um, and then we can go from there. So that is that's about it, and that's just basically some very general gearing instructions on how to gear on a 10C budget. So hopefully you learned something. If you did, feel free to share, like, subscribe, whatever, and thanks very much. Again, my name's Hal, and if you want to check out the Frostbolt guide, go ahead and do so. Check that in the description below, and I will also try and link as many of the helpful tools for beginners, like the PoE craft, some of these different preset searches, different things like that. One thing that I like to do with these is just once I have a preset search like this, then I'll just go to the search form. I already have it set. If I just want to keep if I want to keep about 80% of these, I'll just go up here and duplicate, and then I go back, leave this one up if I want to keep it, and then I could just go ahead and edit these. So I can throw up some of those, and yeah, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, just let me know, and thanks for watching.